Hey guys, welcome to day 2 of the 28-day ketogenic weight loss challenge. Today's lesson, we're looking at what is nutritional ketosis. So, nutritional ketosis is when the body moves from using glucose as a fuel, blood sugar basically as a fuel, as its primary fuel source, over to using ketones. As insulin levels fall, the body begins to break down the triglycerides that are stored in fat cells into fatty acids that can be used for fuel instead of calling for more blood sugar, more blood glucose, basically. As fatty acids are metabolized, they are converted into acetyl-CoA, and as acetyl-CoA levels rise, the liver converts these acetyl-CoA enzymes into ketone bodies. So there are different types of ketones. As ketone levels rise, the body and brain begin to use them for fuel instead of the dropping levels of glucose. And that's important because there's a misconception that people think that the brain needs glucose to function. It doesn't. It can work just fine on ketones. Not that you'll ever take so much blood glucose out that you'll be totally empty. You're always going to have a little bit of blood sugar. But the brain doesn't need sugar in order to function. There are two main types of ketones. There's acetoacetate, which shows up in the urine, and there is beta-hydroxybutyrate, which shows up in the blood and the breath. So when you're measuring your ketones, if you want to measure your ketones, that's what you're measuring. If you're using the urine strips, you're measuring the acetoacetate. If you are measuring with blood or breath, like if you have a ketone analyzer, ketonics analyzer, you're measuring the beta-hydroxybutyrate. It is important to note that if you're using the urine strips to measure ketosis, they are not as accurate as testing the blood or breath, because the longer you're in ketosis, the more efficiently your body will begin to use acetoacetate, which means there will be less cast off into the urine, and over time the urine strips will show you with smaller and smaller levels of ketones, but that might not be accurate. So the longer you're in ketosis, the less accurate those urine strips become, because your body is using the acetoacetate more efficiently, and less is getting into the urine. So I know a lot of people freak out. They're using the urine strips. They look like they're great, and then all of a sudden their ketone levels begin to fall off, and they're freaking out because they don't know why they're not still in ketosis. That's not the problem. The problem is that your body is using your ketone bodies more efficiently. So if you just kind of want to measure whether or not you're in ketosis, urine strips are great. But if you want an accurate reading, you'd much rather test your blood or your breath, which is why the Ketonics breath analyzer, and I'm not a sponsor for them or anything, but the Ketonics analyzer works great because you just blow into a tube basically, and it tells you your ketone levels. You're in ketosis when ketone levels fall between 0.5 and 5 millimolars. It should be noted that you don't necessarily have to measure your ketone levels if there's a barrier to do so, like cost, because that Ketonics analyzer costs about $150. Over time, you'll be able to feel when you're in ketosis. The way your body feels will change. You'll have more energy, and there's sometimes a difference in the way that your breath smells. It'll begin to smell a little sweeter due to the increase in beta-hydroxybutyrate. So also, one other thing that we need to cover is that ketosis and ketoacidosis are two totally different things, and this is something a lot of people get confused. They think that ketosis is ketoacidosis, and that's not true. So ketoacidosis is a state that only occurs in diabetics whose insulin and blood sugar levels are totally out of control. If blood sugars rise to dangerous levels and there's no insulin being injected or created by the body to bring those levels down, there's nothing to stop the process of bringing fat out of fat cells and converting them to ketones. Ketone levels quickly rise to absurd levels, like north of 10 millimolars. And that damages the kidneys, that damages the other internal organs, and you're in trouble if you're in ketoacidosis. If you are not a diabetic, you have absolutely nothing to worry about from ketoacidosis. You can't get into ketoacidosis if you're not a diabetic. If you are a diabetic, you also have very little to worry about in terms of ketoacidosis once you're on a ketogenic diet, because you won't be eating anything that will cause a blood sugar spike. So your body's able to handle the fats that you give it very well. Now, if you are a diabetic, it is important, especially in the early weeks of switching over to a ketogenic diet, that you test your blood sugar regularly for at least the first month on a ketogenic diet, because you'll be changing, you're changing the fuel that you're giving your body, and so you will need less and less insulin. How much less insulin is determined by testing your blood sugar. So you really need to keep a very close eye if you're a diabetic, either type 1 or insulin dependent type 2. You need to keep a very close eye on those blood sugar levels, at least for the first month, to figure out exactly how much insulin is needed. Don't go on your old whatever of injecting the insulin, your old insulin levels, because you won't need as much. And if you over inject, that causes its own set of problems. So make sure you continue to test, and you just want to ensure that your insulin levels are right for the amount of food, the amount of blood sugar that you create with the food that you eat, which will be, like I said, a lot smaller because you're not eating foods anymore that cause an insulin spike. So that's it. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments. We'll be back here tomorrow for day 3 of the 28-day ketogenic weight loss challenge. We'll talk to you then. If you want to join us, mysugarfreejourney.com/28day, 28, the number's 28 day. You can come over and join the 28-day challenge with us. Thanks. Bye.